Thank you, Mr. Chairman, and thank you to each one of the witnesses. This is a very important discussion today. I've always thought of the American flag as the symbol of our country, but the Constitution is the soul of our nation. And so the discussion about First Amendment is a very, very important one. It's a sacred one, in my view. In listening to each one of the witnesses, I think that my sensibilities move from one, they swing from one direction to another. Are these sensibilities of individuals, professionals who have a great deal of pride about their profession, what they write, what they say? In politics, we say, throw a punch, take a punch. Is it someone's ego that is offended by the reaction to what they have written? Dr. Bhattacharya, you wrote the Great Barrington Declaration. I think context is very important in this as well. That was in October of 2020. There were 24,930 deaths due to COVID in October of 2020, an average of 787 precious souls that were dying every day. We didn't have the vaccine yet. Now, your complaint about being censored is with the platform. And I think that you also have a beef with who was the head of NIH and Dr. Fauci, because they didn't agree with you, and there was fierce opposition to what you put out. That's all part of the enormously important debate that takes place in academia and in the medical community. That's vibrant. It's a reflection of our democracy. But what I would like to get to is what the definition of censorship is. Mr. Overton, would an accurate definition of censorship be the suppression or prohibition of speech by the government?
It's this concept of the government, and the government is key in terms of censorship. The courts have come up with a test if government is being coercive in terms of social media. So are they being coercive? Are they going to punish social media for keeping things up? That's the state action. That's the problem. One other quick note here is that some of this reality that, frankly, I just think we have missed here. In Q4 2021 alone, YouTube removed 1.26 billion comments, 1.26 billion comments. So if we think that they have got to go through and give an explanation for every comment that they have removed, that's not going to happen. Basically, what's going to happen is they're going to say, we're going to get out of this business. We'll just leave up the smut, the obscenity, the hate speech. That is your internet if that's what we have to do.
Well, Congress has a major responsibility in all of these areas, whether it's the reforming of Section 230. Let's see what the Supreme Court does. My sense is they're going to kick it back to Congress again. A national privacy law. I don't take a backseat to anyone on that issue. Congresswoman Lofgren and myself wrote what academicians said was the most comprehensive privacy legislation in the Congress. So we have a lot on our plate and a lot of responsibilities to meet. Would a state law that prohibits private sector employers or public university professors or students from discussing diversity, racial equity, systemic racism, or sexual identity be considered censorship?
It would be, and in fact, it was. A couple of courts last year.
Let me get to another question, because you said yes. Would a state law preventing public school teachers from discussing their own sexual identity and requiring them to hide it from their students be considered censorship? Would the Florida new law on banning books We do consider that censorship.
Certainly as applied to universities and private sector employers, yes, and courts have agreed with me.
Well, it seems to me that some of us speak out on what we consider censorship. There's a convenience in this, that what we don't like, we consider censorship. But I think it's very broad under the First Amendment, and I think the steps that Congress needs to take is to certainly address the reforms in 230 and in a very strong national privacy law. I wish I had more time, but I thank you again for your testimony and for your answers.